nobody can make the argument that access to the property and the deer is not a factor.
100%.
So again, I will.
But inevitably, you'll find your way onto some property where you can kill a 200-incher, probably. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire, whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Hey.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 95.
What's up?
Carry the one, 5 away from 100.
Yeah, man.
Well, it is October the 6th today. Mm-hmm. It feels weird, man. Like we were talking about the scrape activity, kind of there, kind of not. And I feel like it's like maybe because we've been like really deep into it since the beginning of September that like it feels like we should be further along. And then it's like, oh, it's only October 6th.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Because in most states, I don't even have a buck I want to shoot yet. But it also is like the next, 3 to 4 weeks is going to be like high energy cranking.
Yeah.
It's
hard not to get ahead of yourself this time of year. Because it's early in October, and I'm with you. I haven't seen a lot of nighttime activity, not a lot of movement, period. Yeah, I just haven't seen a lot of bucks, period.
Scrapes are hit or miss.
Uh-huh.
I've got a lot of food in Ohio, and there's some 2 and 3 year old bucks in it, but it's pretty bare. It's not like it's piling in behind the house. The kids and I have been hunting. I think we hunted 4 days in a row out of the muddy, and we saw between 6 and 9 does and fawns every night. And they're cranking pretty hard on Nebraska. They're laying into it, but no.
Yeah, same deal.
Nothing crazy.
Does hitting stuff,
and I've always had that trouble where the kids can shoot whatever they want, but I'm always like, should I shoot does now? Should I wait?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer to that. People ask me that all the time. It's like, well, should we shoot our does early? Well, yeah, but the more pressure you put on that property, the worse it's going to be, especially as you lean in towards the next 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's tough because we're trying to hunt on the good days, and you don't want to shoot burn a hunt to kill some does on the good days.
Well, and I'd like to, if all possible, I'd like to kill some does just to take some miles off that brassica. Because I don't know about yours, but they're pummeling some of mine right now.
Mine too, man. I've got just too many. I've speculated that I've had too many does on that property for a long time, and I don't know. We just haven't really.
It's hard.
Been able to rally around doing anything.
The does are the one thing. Like we'll talk from a management side. Like obviously we want to kill does from a management angle. But once the time comes to actually hunt, it's like, again, we're not hunting 90 days a year. I wish we were. We're not. So, the times we go out are probably planned around trying to kill a buck.
Yeah.
And so what do? Shoot a doe?
Yeah. Dude, if I have, in all the years of you just listening to different people talk about it, just like we do with the land management approach, I've yet to hear a concrete answer of what is correct. And I don't know if there is a right answer, more does versus less does, or, guys have different opinions across the board.
Who's the doe Is it Jeff? Is Sturgis the doe factory guy? Is that who says doe factory all the time?
Yeah, I think so.
He's against doe factories?
Right.
And
I think, I don't know exactly.
Yeah. But. And then I think, I don't know if Don has a stance on that. I know Mark Drury's not opposed to having a lot of does on his property.
Really?
Yep. Because he doesn't hunt, he'll plant it, let it go, and whatever does are there, the does are there. I think Tony LaPratt is very much in favor of having does, more bucks is his philosophy.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, I mean, I don't know from a biological angle, if you have too many does on a property, adult does on a property, your rut will not be as intense. Just a fact, because the buck will not have to work as hard to find a in estrus doe.
Yeah, I mean, in my case, it seems to just be more like space. Like there's just so many does.
Mm-hmm. Well, because you're more in a fragmented landscape too.
Yeah,
occupying
the bedding areas and occupying food sources that it's like, I don't know. I've never seen the alternative. Like, I don't know what it would be like to have far fewer does if we would have more mature bucks or...
Yeah.
Some guys say yeah. Some guys say no, you're pulling them in during the rut. But that doesn't seem to be the case. Our rut is not that great.
Well, and I mean, the other thing, and just selfishly, like I don't want to harvest does right now, mainly because it's hot. Like then you got to deal with them fast. Like if it was highs in the 50s, lows in the 30s, I'd skin it, let it hang, and not care about it.
Yeah.
But like when it's 70 some degrees, I don't want to go and stack 4 does and then have to be gutting and skinning all night.
Sure. We'll see. I'm an opportunist. I mean, it's just kind of like, if, I don't know, every hunt in October is kind of like seat of the pants. It's like, as I'm putting my clothes on, I'm like,
man.
where am I going? Where am I going?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's changing every week. Literally it's changing. Like right now is the cool part, because unless your property is like purely set up for like just opening like summer patterns, every week from now through the next 4 or 5 weeks, in the Midwest and Northeast at least, will get better.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point there'll be a diminishing return, right? It'll start to go downhill. Eventually gun seasons will happen, and then like it gets tough. But I mean, at least for most of the places I would say that you and I hunt, and I would say a lot of people listening to this, every week we get into this thing, we get a little better. I think the big argument, and we've talked about this a lot, is, I think that probably once you hit November 3rd, 4th, I think it actually gets harder than the week prior, mainly because of the unpredictiveness of those bucks. Whereas that like October 23rd to November 1st, 2nd, yeah, I mean, the rut's starting to kick in and pick up some steam, but man, I think that those mature bucks especially, are very patternable still, and scrapes are deadly. After that, if there's not a hot doe, I think it's tough.
I see a lot of patterns that first week of November on my place.
Still like following to a T?
Like new ones. Like it seems like they emerge. Like I have a lot of bucks not start on a pattern until like November 2nd. And it'll go through like the 4th, 5th, 6th.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be scrapes.
Mm-hmm.
Typically it's like a buck will move into an area, and it's like, and that's where cell cams become like really deadly.
Well, most recent information at that point.
Right. And so if we've killed several bucks that way. It's like they just get on some kind of a routine there, like some kind of a loop.
Not like full out chase. Maybe have just, I would assume that the first handful of does have come into estrus and are being occupied or have been bred.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of that upswing in the peak breeding cycle.
Yeah.
Because once you hit peak breeding, then it's total chaos.
Right.
Lockdown.
It's like usually once you hit that 2nd, 3rd week in November, this is Eastern Central Ohio at least, that's when it starts to get kind of haywire.
Yeah. I mean,
and tough because they're not using, we talk about good stands during the rut.
Mm-hmm.
That is definitely true that first 2nd week of November, and probably again, towards Thanksgiving. But during that like lockdown type time frame, those bucks are pushing does out into like remote drainages. Like there's not a real good way to hunt them. It's just random spots.
Yeah, and
ditches,
in random
in
times.
Most cases.
Like that's when you see a buck come through at 1 p.m. in the afternoon because he just came off a doe and he's looking for the next.
Yeah.
Those are your all-day sit ones, and they're long and sometimes boring. Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I mean, so this is what, Aaron, like the next week, Nick?
Yeah, this will air...
So like the 11th?
The 11th.
Okay. So, I mean, you're listening to this, you've got the next 2-3 weeks that you're planning out here.
Right now, we're cold front, so like...
This weekend there's one, at least in...
A big one.
Ohio, Pennsylvania, Kentucky. I'll be in Florida, so we'll not be hunting. But next weekend, I think on Thursday evening, coming through Illinois, Indiana, Kentucky, Ohio, is another big cold front with a bunch of rain.
Nice.
Clears out Friday, Saturday. Temperatures go down into like the high 40s, low 50s.
Oh, yeah.
So you got 2 back-to-back fronts coming through here. This one's kind of weird. You and I
hadn't seen that one.
You and I talked
this
about
one's like a pseudo front.
Yeah, it's
definitely a cold front, but it's not no
precipitation, just like a
precip.
Yeah, it's just kind of the pseudo front. But next week's front looks legit.
Agreed.
So, I think if you're listening to this, it would be this week's front, so Thursday, Friday. To me, that time frame, which will be that 15th, 16th, 17th time frame, dude, if there is an open scrape and there's a buck you want to kill hitting that scrape, be on it either Friday or Saturday.
Jeez. Dude, isn't it crazy how these always line up with weekends?
Yes.
It seems like every year it's like hot during the week, cold front. Yeah, like every weekend is good.
Love that.
Working out for the weekend.
What I hope is it does
working out for the weekend warriors.
I hope it works out the following week, because that's when we'll be with Steve Shirk up in the Allegheny National Forest.
Yeah, for sure.
If you're listening to this, first of all, I think between the 12th and the 16th or 17th of October, scrapes get pretty hot. Not like full out, but boy, you can really tell that bucks are using them probably at night. That front is going to hit sometime in Thursday, Friday, depending on where you're at. That following day, whether it's Friday or Saturday, if you're on that scrape, he's probably going to come hit it. Or there's a damn good chance of it. So, I think what we talk about now, I'm going to bring back to a previous podcast here in a second, but what we talk about now is the opportunity that every week, at least for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, scrape activity is going to get hotter and hotter and hotter. Even if that's at night, people always say, well, man, they're
so hot right now.
Yeah. People always say like, oh, well, the scrape's not getting hit during the day. Dude, scrapes don't get hit during daylight hours very often. It's almost 100%, or 95% plus at night. That's just how they are. But when you can identify that a buck is using a scrape and you can plan that to a precipitated cold front, that deer will likely hit that scrape the next day, possibly during daylight hours, depending on when that front hits. That's your best chance to kill them on a scrape. Mm-hmm. Other than that, if you're hunting over a scrape and it's 65 degrees out and there's no front around, odds are you're just putting pressure on that scrape, and that deer, he's just nocturnally hammering that thing. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So,
dude, it's pretty textbook. Like, it's worth monitoring those scrapes right now. Like with cameras, like you want to
always
obviously know if he's in an area.
And don't be discouraged. We were just talking about it. Like I've got a ton of mock scrapes, and I got a few open scrapes that were made by bucks. In Ohio, at least, I've got, 17 or 18 mock scrapes kicked in. Mm-hmm. Not all of them have cameras on it, give or take, but 10 of them do. And 2 of those scrapes are what I would consider fairly active. 1 moderately active. The other one's dead. Mm-hmm. So if you're listening to this, hopefully it's increasing in a week from now. But like, don't get discouraged if you have mock scrapes and you're like, man, like, all right, nothing hitting it. Give it time. Like the next 3 weeks, the activity is going to increase, and likely that scrape's going to open up. And once it opens up, it'll remain open for the next 3 to 4 weeks till we hit peak breeding and chasing, and then it'll shut down.
Yeah, it's got to be in the right spot. Dude, I've had scrapes never get hit, that I thought were really good, and usually it's just seasonal.
Is that mock or previous year scrapes?
Usually it's mock scrapes that
previous year seems pretty reliable. Like if that scrape was tore up last year, like I've got a couple of those in Ohio right now, aren't getting hit yet, but they will.
Yeah.
It's pretty textbook that once the time comes, they'll open them up and they'll stay open. Mm-hmm. Those mock scrapes are the ones that, if they don't really get used hard last year, I don't think they, you can reset them again and maybe they get used this year, but it's not a guarantee by any means. Yeah,
it's tough to know. Whether to leave or pull a camera is like it's critical, because I have pulled cameras too early and, found out later, like I said, that first week in November or whatever it was, a buck was in there on a string, and I had pulled the camera already. Maybe I was just getting them somewhere else and I put it together. But yeah, you want to have your cameras in the right place, obviously. Mm-hmm. and those bucks are out there somewhere right now, and they are laying some sign. I mean, I think right now, this first 2 weeks of October, recent sign is pretty critical.
Mm-hmm. You and I both have found some rubs recently.
Yeah.
A few scrapes.
Yeah, and I've also found, like just yesterday, I walked a property close to home that I found some historic sign rubs from last year, good size rubs. That's one of the ones where somebody might be like, here he is, I'll set up on this,
though.
and yeah, it's obvious. It's not obvious, I guess, but there's no recent sign, and so like I don't want to set up on something a year old thinking he's going to be there right now. But it's certainly worth monitoring, if that buck's still alive. I assume he'll be back in there at some point.
And when you see him, then it's time to get serious about it, I think.
Yeah. It's tough, man, because, like, they're not moving super far right now still. And they won't until that third, fourth week of of October. They'll start to get on more of a loop. They'll start checking the outer perimeters of their core area. But I think right now, if you find a rub, they are laying sign at food sources at night. That does happen. But if you find rubs close to bedding cover right now and scrapes, I think
he's in there.
You're close, and it's dangerous because you're
almost too
close.
Yeah.
So just be smart about your scouting. Try to hopefully where some of that bedding security cover is. You can walk the outer perimeter of it. You carefully observe that sign from a distance as much as possible, or just do it once. Some guys are in favor of like a speed scouting mission. I like that too. Not that I'll intentionally just charge through a bedding area and see what I see, but you got to find them.
I mean, it depends on the property. Like my Ohio one, what I've been spending a lot of my time on is, when I do walk it, which is once every couple months, I'll probably do for another one here soon. Like I usually am on the perimeter. Like I'm not really walking through the gut of my property. Obviously if there's bedding on the perimeter of my property, I'm trying to avoid that or at least stay, downwind of it. And so, a lot of guys, differing opinions, right? You've got a lot of people who, won't walk on their property after August 1st. You've got other guys who, will speed scout throughout the season. I think it just depends. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now at least my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to trail cameras and definitely cell cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth Cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than Stealth Cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com. Check them out.
Speaking of countering approaches, I guess, we started to pot a little bit, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. It was before your elk episode.
We did. I didn't say anything.
This kind of, it's not, it is funny, but it's not. Like, here's the deal.
It's kind of funny.
So first of all, this is between the John Eberhart and Don Higgins thing, right? It's no secret. Apparently John doesn't like Don or doesn't respect him. I don't know. What's funny is Don texted me and basically said, like, he's never even met or talked to Eberhart before.
Right. Well, and I don't think that's true. What you're saying, I don't think that John has any idea about these guys. I think he's just living in
assumptions,
a totally different world. If anything, he's looking at guys like Don, like Mark Drury. I think DeQuistio was mentioned in there as well.
And frankly, kind of like us. I mean, maybe just we're maybe not as, because we do hunt some public, but we for sure are more like a Mark Drury, Don Higgins than we are a John Eberhart.
For sure. And so I think he's just using those guys as, like, frankly, a benchmark of people who are known giant buck killers.
On managed lands.
You could probably throw 10 other guys in there.
Sure.
Lakoski, Winky, all of them
Sturgis,
guys who manage their property and kill big bucks. We talked about how to even kind of compare the two, and it's like, dude,
how it came up, right?
They're such apples and oranges.
I mean, it came up in that we basically, in a lighthearted way, we're like, how do you determine the best deer hunter out there, right? And it's not an unusual question. I mean, ultimately, we all want to be the best at something. If you don't, you need to check your priorities. Like you should want to be
knowing
better.
that it's like a rhetorical question.
It is a rhetorical
can't be
question.
answered
Because it varies so much, and that's what we're trying to get at. The whole goal there was like, hey, we want to try to get at the fact that you can't put a label on that because it is complete apples and oranges in the approach to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and maybe it spiraled out when John kind of got on his rant, but ultimately, first of all, obviously, I think everybody should be clear. Like, we didn't really agree with what John was saying. Like, we're trying to explain our point of view, which is we love managing property, and frankly, we may get a bigger rush out of managing and growing a buck than we do actually just going out and killing them.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Regardless of like the real, I don't know. I just think it's like, dude, it's John Eberhart. Like, he's known for just speaking his mind.
I will
people
say
know
that I think John is, and I'm not saying he represents a group of people necessarily, but I think that John is saying what I bet a lot of pure public land people think of guys who manage property and only hunt deer on unpressured managed properties. I think the words that he said maybe were a little harsh in that he kind of picked out on a person or two. That said, I think the way that he emphasized that he doesn't necessarily respect the fact that they go out and kill, or we go out and kill bucks on a managed piece of property versus the guys who are just dealt the hand they are and go out and kill a big buck on public. And that is in all transparency, that is the line in the sand. And we talk about this all the time, and that's probably what our podcast, I would say, gets the most criticism for, is like, quit dividing hunters. Listen, we're already frickin' divided. The fact that we're highlighting it is simply because I want one side of the line to hear what the other side of the line has to say. I'm not necessarily saying that we're on both sides of the line, because we aren't. In fact, we probably, in this case, are way more on the managed deer side. That's what our passion is, and that's how we hunt. But ultimately, that doesn't mean that I don't want to hear the guys who purely are dealt the public land hand to have a say in explaining like why they feel that way. Do we have to agree with them? No. But it's important to acknowledge, like, just like the crossbow compound traditional bow, like, there are definitive divisions in hunting. Don't try to act like there aren't, and don't act like they will ever come together, because it's not going to. But what will help is to understand a viewpoint from the side that you're not on. And though you don't have to agree with it, in the case of most of what Eberhart said, we don't agree with, Don doesn't agree with, whatever. The fact is like, that's how he feels. No different than if we said, man, I really feel like the guys who go out and hunt public land and are just killing the first 1-year-old they see isn't right. Doesn't mean that they have to agree with me. They surely don't agree with me. They may say, that's the only option I have. Cool. I don't think that's the only option you do have. We disagree. Thus, a free country. Like, and it's just, what makes me upset is two things. Number one, anybody that commented and thought that we agreed with John on everything he had to say didn't listen to what we were saying, which is fine. And frankly, this podcast probably isn't for you, so peace out. The other thing is, if you listen to what John's saying, to your point, he doesn't know for a fact. It is assumed that Don had, thousands of acres to hunt. Not a fact. It's assumed that Don probably couldn't go to public. Not a fact. Like, it's just, this is what I think because this is what it seems like, right? Just as we might criticize somebody like a John Eberhart to say, well, dude, what do you mean you're only going to kill 125s? Like, ultimately, you want to kill an older buck. No, he doesn't. Well, why? It doesn't matter. He's on the other side, and he doesn't have to agree with what we say. But I think that the hard part there is people took that very much as like a personal dig and insult, where it was, I think John said a couple names when, frankly, he was talking to a bunch of us that manage land. And I disagree with him. Like, I'm sure John is a good hunter, and we have had this conversation. I hate having to even say it, but like, dude, if you don't think that I can go out and kill a big buck on Michigan public land, shit, dude, I'll go do it this fucking year because I know I'm a good hunter and I know how to read signs and I know how to kill a big buck. I don't care if I'm on managed land or public land. So the generalized critique of like guys like Don or us or Mark and Terry, whoever, Bill Winke can't kill, maybe is true in some cases. I can't speak for those guys, but I surely can speak for you and I. And I know, do you put us on a piece of ground and there's a big buck on it, we'll damn well be close to killing that deer. And that's just how we function as hunters.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's like I can see both sides. Like I think the reaction to his comment was like caught me off guard. I was like, whoa, like, people are offended by this.
In terms of Don's reaction to it?
Well, it sounds like a bunch of people were like, Don, like this guy's tearing you up, like
sure.
Sending him links and stuff.
It caught me off guard when John said it, at least. Like, listen, obviously.
What did he say?
We don't plan these freaking podcasts. I don't know what the hell our guest is going to say.
Yeah, he basically said that, guys that kill bucks on managed land are not as good of hunters as him, basically.
And that essentially they couldn't do what he does.
Yeah. And I mean, who cares? Like,
yeah.
That's what I mean. It's like, all right, good. Yeah. Good for you. Like clearly.
Yeah. Don and I
we're going to keep doing it.
And I was like, dude, like I obviously, if you want to respond, happy to have you do that. I don't think it's worth your time. Like,
yeah,
there are no factual statements there. It's assumptions.
Yeah.
And honestly, we talk about Don because that's who was mentioned. I think Mark was mentioned too. Interchange it with many people's names, even us.
Well, dude, both guys that we've had on the podcast and have a ton in common with, like see eye to eye with on a lot.
Sure. Also see eye to eye not on everything. Like I respect them. There ain't no way in hell that I'm ever gonna not hunt the wind.
Oh, sure. Well, that's an Eberhard thing.
Right. And that's an agreement on Don.
Yeah.
There's also things that I think from like
and every other deer hunter that's ever killed.
But I also I like Eberhard's approach to speed scouting. I think that's a great thing. I do that often. So I mean, like you're gonna have things you agree with and you don't agree with, and I don't know. This isn't an apology by any means from us.
No.
Like the goal here at our podcast, and hopefully if you've listened to more than just that one, you understand is our goal is to allow a guest a platform to state their opinion. We don't have to agree with that, and we didn't agree with some of those things. But ultimately, like, I want to hear him. Like, he feels that way for a reason. Who am I to not allow him to explain that to me? Otherwise, there is no progression in this discussion. It stops with, well, John, you're wrong. Let's move on. Well, no. Why do you feel that way? Why do you feel like a guy like Don or Mark Drury or somebody couldn't go to Michigan and kill a 125-inch buck? Because that is the apples to apples analogy. That's what John Eberhard does. That's what he's saying that those guys can't do. I disagree.
Well, and like this is where it's like I don't know. Like if he had said that about me personally, I mean, I think if I even heard about it, my response would be like, okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
Well, and again, it's because
it would also be,
it's bullshit.
It would also be, well, I'm just not interested in going to Michigan to kill a 125-inch 2-year-old.
Great point.
Like that just doesn't.
Which is why I said, like, I really don't want to have to say, like, I could go prove myself to do this because I don't have any desire to do that.
Right.
I can kill a 2-year-old 125-inch in Pennsylvania soon if I wanted to. I don't want to. On public land. I don't want to do that.
Or let's even say, take the age difference. Let's even say same age class, but like to go and kill a mature whatever, kill a mature buck in Michigan or whatever. I mean, a guy like Don or Mark or whoever would have to choose that over killing a giant buck in Iowa
or limited time
or wherever, Illinois, that it's like, well, yeah, why?
For what?
To who am I trying to prove this to? Like nobody's trying to, prove themselves as a hunter to. I mean, there are people out there maybe that are, but I think you and I assume Don and Mark and Andre, these guys are not.
We kind of hunt.
We're
hunting for ourselves.
To hunt to prove that we can do it to somebody. And I mean, that's just kind of sucks the fun out of it. It's unfortunate that somebody.
Well, I mean, it's part of the fun of the discussion of like, who's the best deer hunter. But it's also because it is a rhetorical question.
It's impossible. Yeah, it's not a real thing.
There's plenty of people that will look to certain guys that we've never even heard of to be like, yeah, this dude kills giants.
Well, that's why I much prefer, and we've had quite a few times, the discussion around like why do we hunt?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is kind of the root of the conversation that we probably had with John and have had with Don and Mark and those guys in the past. Is like, dude, what is it that's exciting you? And so that's where it's apples to oranges. Is for John, it's it's killing high pressure deer, whatever. And for a lot of other guys who manage properties and stuff, it's cultivating a scenario where you can kill mature bucks, ideally with large antlers. And so they're very different things. Like, they are both hunting. And John might not agree. And I said, well, no,
Well, and we talked about it pre-podcast, like the line in the sand for, I think, both of those groups is high fence.
Yeah.
In that none of us, I think, agree that high fence hunting is hunting.
Well, but 100%, there are guys out there who are like, what do you mean? That's
I know.
hunting.
Yeah. Well, I have 2,000 acres in a fence. Like, you go find a deer in that. And I, again, disagree.
Yeah.
But who am I to, again, you're arguing the other side of the line.
Right.
And so there will always be divisions in hunting. And the fact that this kind of stirred the pot, I think, was a good thing in that, first of all, it's not like we're promoting this thing out there to say, look at what John said about Don. Like, it's the same way that we put a podcast out all the time. The fact that it got attention was because 1,000 people decided to tell Don, like, hey, look at this thing.
Yeah.
Which is funny. And Don, listen, at the end of it, I think Don is a good enough person and self-secure to say, yeah, I don't really care what this guy thinks. Like, I know who I am. And I would assume that the 1,000 people who texted Don, if that was the actual number, also know, like, okay, we know who Don is. Like, he's legit.
Yeah.
I assume that there's a bunch of people that also say the same thing about John Eberhart and say, that's a pretty legit guy. Like, I know how he hunts. I know his strategies and what he does.
For sure.
And
well, dude,
cool,
he's not nobody. I mean, he's been recognized for a long time by a lot of people. I mean, the dude has partnerships with, Tethered and Scentlock currently, because of his notoriety, like, in his field.
And John is an arrogant guy. He'll be the first to tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah, he believes what he believes, and he's not afraid to throw it out there. And it obviously will offend people.
Yeah.
We take it with a grain of salt. Like we would with anybody else. But
well, listen, at the end of the day, you've got to be very sure of yourself. And if things like that really shake you, then there's probably some truth to them.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. If somebody says, well, Jeremy couldn't ever kill a 3-year-old buck in Pennsylvania on public ground, I'll be like, yeah, dude, I've done it a bunch of times. Cool. Like, like, I get it. It's bullshit. I've done it. It's not a big deal.
I don't know. I mean, we're obviously not intentionally trying to stir people up, but I want to hear what John has to say. Like I said, he's got the notoriety to have our ear on it, and I find it interesting that maybe some people have that perspective.
I think there were several people that commented in agreement with him.
It's unfortunate that there's, that people feelings get hurt or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's obviously not. But I think that we've heard a lot, like, again, if there is a critique of this podcast, it's like, quit dividing the hunters. Dude, the divisions exist.
Right.
We're not creating them as much as we're saying they exist. You have to acknowledge them. And it doesn't mean that you'll never bring them together. Those guys will never come together with the managed guys. The compound bow guys probably will not ever come together with the crossbow guys. Like, it's inevitable. That said, like, you just have to mutually understand where they're coming from. Like, there are points of what John said that I'm like, I don't agree with that, but I see why you say that.
Well, and even amongst these different groups, call them groups of hunters, there are commonalities. Like, there are shared interests, shared beliefs, and like that's a lot of what we're trying to pull out of these conversations. Is like
absolutely
as different as guys like I don't know. Look at any kind of like a historical camaraderie, or not camaraderie, but
competition.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it. I mean, you and I watched recently that the great debate between Tony Lee Pratt and
which is awesome,
and Higgins, and there's been others in the past that are just like they have very different approaches to things, but
who's right or wrong? I mean, we talked about the same thing with doe harvest earlier. It's like, what's right? Should I kill all the does now? Should I kill them later? Like, should I not kill them at all? Like,
it's an unanswerable question, man. It's not one that we've ever truly asked, looking for an answer of like who is the best hunter. But I mean, a lot of guys will point and say, well, it's the trophy wall. But even that is like, how long have you been at it? What opportunities do you have to do it? Like, it's an unanswerable question. And so the best we can do is have conversations with everybody.
It's all opinionated.
Oh,
there
there
are no like factual, like these people. Because even so, one of the things that I looked at recently is I bought and anybody can do it, right? I think it's $50. I bought a subscription to the Boone and Crockett Club's database. So what it lets me do is I can go in there to any state, any county, and find records of the book bucks submitted. Now, first off, right, take the data with a grain of salt in that, like, I don't know many people that submit. Like, even the book deer I've killed, I have not submitted.
Yeah. It's like what type of people are taking the time to answer political polls. Like, yeah, I don't believe that.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean.
Biden's up 72%?
What?
Amazing.
Everybody loves Joe?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what they polled.
Jesus. Gas is down. But if you think about it, at some point in history, maybe it was in the 80s and 90s, I do think that almost everybody submitted their book deer. In most recent light, as gross became more important, and I think bucks just became, more prevalent in terms of size to kill, I think that's decreased. That said, grain of salt. I started going through and I'm like, where are the repeat offenders, let's call them, right? Who are the guys who are in the book for multiple deer? And there were a couple I found. Like, one guy in Texas had killed, I think 8 or 9 in the last 12 years. Like that seems fairly legit. Now, what I don't know about that guy is maybe he owns a 30,000 acre ranch in Texas and there's nobody else hunting it and whatever. But I mean, I take it for what data I have. Like,
see, and it's funny that you give that guy like, take away from his. That's exactly.
And I don't want to do that.
That's exactly what John did. He's like, well, these guys have this, and
I know.
Who knows? Maybe these guys hunt.
So how do you make it a level playing field? Because what I was looking for.
Well, and really, who wouldn't love to be that guy? And who knows, be a millionaire and have all this land to hunt and kill a booner every year?
Yeah, and so obviously my instinct
everybody would love to do that.
Was to asterisk that guy.
Yeah.
Well, like, what does he have? What is it? Was it private land? Was it public land? And I caught myself where it's like, dude, like, this is as...
Was it bow? Was it gun? Yeah.
This is as apples to apple comparison. I have a list of, I think it was like 27,000 registrations for Boone and Crockett book typicals and non-typicals. Other than the fact that, yes, there's variation in property size, weapon, etc. Like, if they're a repeat offender on that list, I have to assume they're a pretty damn good hunter. Maybe they're not, though.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just lucky, or maybe they just have access to it, which was part of John's point.
Mm-hmm.
If anything that he said, that may be the one thing I agree with. And it's because, and we've said this since probably podcast 2, you can't kill him if he ain't there. So if you have access...
Dude, this is all it is, man. It's so simple and it's so complex at the same time. It's just literally, does an animal live on a piece of property that you can hunt?
Yeah.
And can you be there at the same time as he? That's like that's what success. That's what being good at hunting is.
Well, and that's what's so strange. This is where so long-winded. This is where it comes back to is like, if I have, I'm gonna pick on you, okay?
Go for it.
Because you'll be
I can
offended.
take it.
You'll be offended. So you have almost, with the new access in East Central, almost 2,000 acres, give or take?
About, yeah.
Huge, right?
Yeah.
You're going to pass deer on those properties that there's no way in hell I would pass this year on the properties I have access to.
Yeah.
Simply because, number one, you have bigger deer or better deer that you're going to target.
Mm-hmm.
And number two is you've got choices,
Yeah. But the main thing is personal goals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say that in a point, you and I have similar personal goals, but the fact is like,
we have different access to it.
Yeah, my Kentucky property doesn't have anything over 150 on it, so why would I pass a 150?
Yeah. Right.
And I'm not saying that if you and I were hunting, if we were both hunting your property, I bet our goals would be exactly the same.
Probably.
So nobody can make the argument that access to the property and the deer is not a factor.
100%.
So again, I will.
But inevitably, you'll find your way onto some property where you can kill a 200-incher, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's so weird about that is I will be the first to say that I'm quick to judge somebody that's even hunting some of the public land around me in Pennsylvania that maybe has time and, I don't know, shoots the first 2-year-old.
Well,
and it's not judging them negatively. I'm just like, well, have you seen bigger bucks? Were there other bucks out there? I just want to understand, if you've killed a wall full of 2-year-olds, what drives you to continue to kill two? I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just curious, what keeps you wanting to kill those kind of deer?
it's got to be tied to that willingness to branch out. Like, some guys just really enjoy hunting, whether it's their own property or properties that they have access to in the local area. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's a job or commitments that keep them in that.
Yeah, and some guys might have limited hunting time, and I get that.
Yeah,
if you've got 1 week to hunt, it's like, and you want to kill a buck with your bow, man, kill whatever you want.
Literally what it is like, if you live or hunt in an area where that is the case, like, the best deer you're going to find is a 2, maybe every once in a while a 3-year-old. You kind of have a choice. Sometimes you have a choice. You can either hunt there and be okay with hunting the best deer in the area,
try to kill the biggest, baddest buck that's in that area,
or you decide not to be okay with that, and you prioritize it in a way that you can hunt older deer, bigger deer.
And it's hard,
and that
man.
means going somewhere else, and that means getting more time to do it, and that means adjusting your lifestyle to do it. And I'm not saying that you should do that or have to do that to be a good hunter at all. That's just the reality of circumstances. And so, like, for me, so we're talking about me.
Of course we are.
We're talking about
me.
We
always talk about you.
Mine is tied to personal goals, which are tied to, like, what I'm passionate about in deer is the maturity of that animal. Mm-hmm. It's whatever it is. It's the culmination of shows that I've watched growing up, or people that I respect that are deer hunters who prioritize this. The maturity of that of that animal, and secondarily the size of his antlers. The two are very much connected. Mm-hmm. Are what draw me to hunting, and the challenge of killing them with a bow. At this point in time, it's a compound bow, and it's just that those are the circumstances that have accumulated to where and how I'm hunting.
And I think that's also your personal mentality, whether it's at the gym or just in life.
And it's opportunity.
You want to continue. You as a person, hunting aside, you as a person, you want to continue to try to grow as a person, whether that's in the gym, as a husband, as a business owner, whatever. Like, your mentality is that, like, you want to continue, not always, we don't always look for a challenge. We just want to continue to try to grow and be better.
Yes, and it's complicated because I can't fault somebody for, accepting their circumstances and achieving their goal of killing, what in the case of Eberhard, whatever.
Yep.
The best deer that he can find in his area. I can't fault anybody for that. That's okay. That's a decision. That's what I'm saying is not everybody has to decide to hunt mature animals, and if they're not where you are, to leave and to go find them and to make time to do it. Mm-hmm. That's just what I've chosen to do. That's what we kind of have elected to do. And states like Kansas, I've got family property in Ohio, have allowed me to do that, and I'm super blessed, and I realize that. I don't take that for granted.
Well, and I think I'll throw myself back in your group, and I bet there's a lot of people listening to this. The thing that surprises me the most, and I was not always like this, and I'll give you a couple examples, but like last year and right now this year, I 100% believe that unless we see something at Steve Shirk's place, I probably won't kill a buck in Pennsylvania this year. Mm-hmm. I just don't have one. I'll probably spend more time exploring new ground and trying to find a big buck than I will hunting at all in Pennsylvania this year. I just don't have one.
Well, that's the alternative course that you can, like a lot of guys.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with not tagging a buck.
So am I. And we covered this previously, and I thought it was funny. Some guys were like, well, what do you mean? Like, that makes no sense.
I know.
I would rather not shoot a deer than shoot a deer that I didn't set out to.
That's the remorse factor we talked about.
To do, yeah. Well, the remorse comes from a misjudgment in the field, a miscalculation of like, I thought it was something else, and in reality, I've killed this deer,
or a not of appreciation of the animal because you're like, I killed a buck, but that's not really what I wanted to do this year.
Well, yeah, and that is a complicated thing. We kind of got stumped with that conversation. It's like, it's not at all that animal deserves any less respect.
Not at all.
But I also think that is okay on a personal level to, whether the word to describe that feeling, whether it's remorse or it's just lack of achievement of your goal. You killed something that you didn't mean to kill, and so because of that.
I would assume a lot of us have been, I will say I personally have done that.
You took a life.
As recent as probably, I don't know, sometime when I was living in Missouri, so let's just say 6-7 years ago, I'd hunted some big deer, and we all have this. This is a classic. I hunted some big deer in bow season. Never had an opportunity, blew a couple opportunities, just it didn't work out. I ended up shooting a deer that I already passed in bow season with a gun. Mm-hmm. And I was happy about it. Like, I was like, a sense of accomplishment. I killed a buck. It was public land. Like, I like a mile plus back in. Like, I worked for that deer. But then the thought process days later were why would I shoot it now when I passed it with a bow?
Yeah.
And part of me, that was my, and I'm not saying that everybody has to feel this way. That was the point in my life where I finally said, you know what? I'm okay if I eat a tag. And I had never been that way. I was 30 years old basically at that point. I'd never been that way. My goal was to not just fill a tag, but I wanted to kill a decent buck basically. At that point, I was kind of like, well, if I'm going to pass all these deer with a bow, why am I going to go out there and rifle and just be like, if I don't do it now, like, I'm not going to do it. That stopped, and I became okay with, you know what? If I want meat, I'll go shoot a doe. If I want to kill a buck, I'm going to give it all I have, but I'm okay not killing one if it's not something that I had already set out after, or a buck that meets my standards.
Yeah.
And that's a tough point in a lot of people's, I think, hunting careers. And maybe some people never get to that point, and that's okay. It just personally, and I've heard this a lot. Like, I've heard guys a lot say, it wasn't at the moment, but it was days later where I realized I'd bow hunted all year. I didn't get the chance at the deer I was after. I passed deer, and in rifle season or gun season, I killed that deer. And I was happy at the moment, which you should be. You should give that deer the appreciation. But days later, as it set in, it was like, why would I pass that deer with a bow, but then be willing to shoot him later with a gun? And that's a really complex thought process there. It's not black and white. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX-5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX-7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt.
Dude, you know what I think has done it for me is I hate killing stuff. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
It makes me sad. It's like it's and I've done it. I mean, I grew up like hanging out with my cousins and stuff. We would go coon hunting at night and killing stuff, and I've seen it.
Sure.
Not that I participated in it to the level that I've seen it done, but I've been personal witness to guys who love killing shit, and it just makes me sick. And when I was young, I didn't fully understand that. I was just like, hanging out
Absolutely,
with
man.
my cousins, and it's like, oh, it's cool. And I've seen people shoot deer with 30-06s out of trucks, and like,
Mhm.
I mean, totally illegal and
Mhm.
unethical.
Think that comes with just maturity of getting older.
I hope so. Whatever it is, it's just having experienced that and observing my own feelings, having killed deer and coyotes, and I've killed stuff.
Yeah.
I've grown increasingly sensitive to death.
Yeah.
I'll
give you
one at a human level too. Yeah, I mean, I've had people close to me die and stuff. It's a very different thing, but like that I think manifests itself in me now, not wanting to experience the remorse of killing something that does not also give me the gratification of having reached my goal of killing a mature animal.
Well, and that's where, like, if people are hunting for sustenance, if they are literally hunting for meat, then every animal they shoot, I assume they have great appreciation
100%, because their goal is to obtain that meat.
Which is awesome. And here's a great, so kids and I have been hunting several days in a row. There's literally, like, every night there's 4 button bucks in this plot, and usually 1 or 2 does with them. But last night it's like 4 button bucks in that plot. And both of the kids are like, yeah, I don't want to shoot a button buck. Now, me at their age, knock the milk right off the lip, like not care. Now, obviously, I appreciate, like, if they wanted to do it, I would fully support them, because they're at that age, like, kill whatever you would like to kill and be happy with it. I'm glad that they don't, because part of me, to your point, would be like, oh, man, I really don't want you to kill this button buck. To the point even where the doe was with them last night, and you see them like grooming each other and stuff, and I'm like, man, if this doe comes in, Harlan's going to shoot it, and I'm going to feel a little bit bad for about 15 seconds that these guys were like just grooming each other as a family, and now he just shoots
I've
this
done
thing.
it. I've shot does that had fawns with them.
Yeah.
My goal was to shoot a doe.
Yep.
And I don't know, I maybe hadn't considered how I would feel about, like, well,
Sure.
their moms does have fawns. Having done that, I realized that it makes me sad.
Yeah. It's a weird feeling, because I mean, people
and
look
I don't
at
do
us,
it. I don't do it anymore. I can't.
Yeah.
The thought of that fawn being without a mom breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And
I still do it, but
sure, yeah.
I do it. I put myself back in the process of, hunting is a tool for conservation and management. If you don't remove females from the population, there are too many. So, like, whatever you got to do to convince yourself at the end of it. And I'm not saying, like, don't be happy, like, if you go shoot a doe, or always feel like sad and remorseful if you shoot a doe, like, but it is, it's a different thing. Now, I do think, and argue against this, I do think that we feel that way because we invest a lot into that property and that deer herd 365.
It's part of it. We just love deer, and
I heart deer.
Yeah, I heart deer. And we invest into their habitat and their age structure.
We want to
because of that.
We want to grow. And, like I say, grow. Like, we're not farming them, but we literally want to provide resources so that resource can thrive.
Yeah, we enjoy seeing them
absolutely
thrive, just like you said. That also then gives us back something, that just furthers the experience of, I don't know exactly how to say that, but, like, we love deer first, I think, and we want to see them succeed. We don't love them because we went out and did all this work, but that does give us additional satisfaction of having created the best environment. Dude, it's a very bizarre thing hunting is. Like, I mean, the fact that nobody loves deer more than me. Like, I'm obsessed with getting to a certain age class, and a lot of hunters, I think, can identify with that feeling. The fact that we then go out and kill them is such a weird thing.
That's where the anti-hunting group will never understand. Because I've dealt with them. I've talked straight to their face.
I don't fully
I've
understand
had massive confrontation with them, to the point where I've looked them in the eye and said, you don't understand how much I love wildlife in general. Deer, turkey, bear, grouse, whatever. Dicky birds, doesn't matter. I invest a shitload of money and time into it every year. You don't. You do not. You protest for their lives, whatever. I will also harvest them and I will kill them.
Mhm.
I've got no shame in saying that. But there's reasons I do all of that. Because left unchecked, they destroy everything.
Yeah.
Right? And
Well, that's not why you do it, though. And it's not why I do it either.
I do it because I love it.
Well, that's what's weird, man. The hunting justification conversation one is such an interesting one because I've heard it put so many different ways that I don't identify with. The population control thing.
But you do in an indirect way.
Yeah,
so
indirectly.
The North American wildlife conservation model doesn't need you to understand how it works. But whether you hunt because you like to kill, or you hunt because you love deer, or you hunt just because you love the sport, or you love to eat meat, all of those things make the North American conservation model work.
Sure.
Doesn't matter if you understand it or not. And that's the beauty of it. There are some fatal flaws to it because it hasn't evolved, but it is everybody, even you and I hunt for different reasons. And so that is the hardest part in these discussions is like, and hell, six years ago, I hunted for a different reason than I hunted 10 years ago, than 12 years ago. Like, again, there's always a constant change there. It is very hard to articulate how you can love deer so much, yet in the same breath be so excited and almost emotionally overwhelmed when you kill one in a positive way. There are very few animals that I've ever shot. That one behind you was probably one that, like, when I shot it, I was like emotionally overjoyed in that, like, what an amazing accomplishment. I also was like it was such a rarity in the area, and for a bow especially, that it was like not sad, but just like emotionally overwhelming to the point of like, this isn't going to happen very often.
Yeah.
And that's a weird thing to, but I also think that, and no offense to them, I think that people who don't consistently hunt and strive for those things will never understand. Like, if you get lucky and you go out and kill a big 5-year-old buck, I bet you're ecstatic. But I would argue that you could not appreciate how rare that is had you strived for that for the last 10 years.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, and that's like there's no way to create that. There's no way to like synthesize your experience leading up to killing a mature buck. Like that is the evolution. That's what I said when I killed that booner last year. It was like the last 15 years of hunting like flashed before my eyes, and it was every moment of that, like all of the, those animals that I had regretted killing, or just everything, every high and low of bow hunting, misses, successes that was like ultimately led to the satisfaction that I felt in that moment.
Yeah,
that still was paired with remorse of like, man, not remorse, dude. It's just an acknowledgement and a respect. It's
an appreciation.
It's the fact that I'd taken a life, and I fully grasped the gratitude of that, having taken it for granted in the past. I've grown from that.
Well, and here's where I think that
and if I can say this too, that feeling is very much present in my having conversations with people about. Use zebra hart as an example, killing the best deer in the area. If the best deer in your area is a 2 or 3 year old, I can understand why you would want to chase that deer, and I don't have any anything against that. For me, that feeling of if I were to do that, I've done it. I've killed 2 and 3 year old bucks. At this point in my, my career or my life or whatever, I feel a dissatisfaction with myself for having killed an animal that is not fully mature. Well, even knowing that's as old as he's probably going to get in the area, it's just still not what I want to do.
Well, and I think that's in a given, like, there are people I know that would have to adjust to that. Like, let's just say we lived in Kansas, right? And then we moved to Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to have to adjust your deer hunting expectations.
You don't. You can go back to Kansas. That's my feeling about it.
So then what do you do in Pennsylvania? Just not hunt?
I haven't. Yeah.
It's an interesting...
And I'm not saying that everybody should do that. I'm just saying...
I will always hunt Pennsylvania. I just won't kill a deer. And I'm okay with that.
Right. And it's tough because I can't tell people not to shoot deer, and I'm not going to.
Well, yeah. And so, I mean, I think what's interesting about it is, like, I still, and maybe people don't do it, I still consider, like, let's look at the next 3 weeks. Next 3 to 4 weeks, I am going to be chasing a 4-year-old or older buck in Pennsylvania. Like, I don't know who he is. I don't know where he's at, but I'm literally in pursuit of him right now. Okay. Yeah. I consider that hunting. I don't have a bow in my hand. More than likely I have a trail camera, or I'm out reading sign and finding scrapes 100%. Or whatever. I'm hunting that deer consistently. I don't know. He may not even exist, but I'm going to continue hunting. I don't have to be in a stand with a bow.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
And so,
I mean, dude, even just in conversation, you're meeting new people. You're
absolutely
driving past places on the way home, observing where other people are hunting. You're like, I'm just,
I'm hunting. I am after
that's
that
the
deer.
Lifestyle of hunting. Yeah, it's trying to.
No, we may get to gun season in Pennsylvania, and I've exhausted myself. But you know what? It still was. It will be unbelievably successful in the next year or two, because think of how much ground and how much new things that I found.
Yeah.
And odds are, I'm confident enough, I'm going to find a buck that I'm going to say, yep, that's the 4-year-old or older I'm looking for, regardless of antler sizes, 4 or older. That's what I want in Pennsylvania. I'm going to hunt him. I don't care if he's on public or private, as long as I have access.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill him. But I think what people have to realize, and it's different too, because if I don't know how to say this. If you like hunting, but you pretty much just hunt a couple weekends in your 1 week vacation, maybe that's not feasible for you. I love hunting, and I'm not saying that they don't. This is where I'm trying to tiptoe around. Like, after work this afternoon, I might put the kids in the car and we'll go drive around and see where people are parked on public land. I'll do that because that's what is priority in my life, my family and hunting,
right.
Like in my businesses.
Right.
Other than that, I'm going to miss Thursday night football. Who gives a shit? Plus it's on Amazon Prime. Nobody can watch it. But those are my priorities.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that, and again, 7-8 years ago, I would have said, well, cool, I need to find a good buck and kill him because I want to fill a tag. I'm not there anymore. I'm okay not filling the tag, but I'm going to continue to try to find a buck that's worthy of what I want.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like, and this is selfish, right? But in a way, I would love to see some of these public land guys appreciate guys like me or you, because I'm not going to come into your spot and kill a 2-year-old or 3-year-old that you're trying to kill. I'm not going to do it. If any, maybe I scout that area, maybe I put a camera up, but I'm not going to compete against you for those deer. So if that's what you're after, good luck, man. I'll share pictures with you of those kind of deer. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to compete against you. Now, if there's a 4 or older, game on. We're in competition, head to head. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But you see, so that's where an Eberhard and I really disagree in that, if John's goal is just killing a 125 regardless of age.
I don't disagree. You just don't relate to that.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I just can't relate to it because it's well, yeah, dude, I know that I have deer right now on camera on public land in Pennsylvania that are 125 plus that are probably 2 or 3. I won't hunt them. Mm-hmm. I won't even set up a stand in the area. Mm-hmm. There's no reason to.
Right.
And so I'm sure there's other guys listening to this would be like, dude, I wouldn't pass that up. Go, man. Enjoy it.
Well, and that's probably because we've created other opportunities for ourselves, like Kansas.
Mm-hmm.
You've gone out and bought property in Ohio.
Yeah.
Properties that likely will turn up a buck that you do want to hunt at some point. So it's why compromise now?
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'll be very transparent. Anybody I've got one series of pictures recently of a buck I would kill on my Ohio farm. Other than that, I hope my dad and Emily and the kids get on bucks, but I don't have anything that I've said I'm going to go hunt this deer right now.
Yeah. Well, dude, it's tough. There's always, layers. Even on my my ground in Ohio, we have 6 guys that hunt it.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
And it's kind of sparse, wood lots and stuff, and it hunts much smaller than it is.
Oh yeah.
And honestly, my priority is for whatever reason is I want to take care of these guys that hunt with me. Like I do most of the running cameras. I have most of the information. And don't get me wrong, I want to kill a giant buck. Like that's that's the reason that I do it. But I also have an obligation to, my dad who owns the property
Sure.
and raised me, and my uncle who was one of my biggest inspirations and these other guys that hunt with us. Like there's a connection there that it's like I almost owe it to them to put them ahead of me in doing that. And so my opportunity in that becomes much smaller because of that, and it's just what it is.
Earmark that spot when somebody complains Jared's whining about having 2,000 acres of private ground, because that comment will come up.
Yeah.
Right now.
Well, and so what I've done is I've gone out and got additional access. I've made friendships, relationships. And so where I killed that buck last year was a property I didn't have access to the year before. It's one that
you got permission on.
I got permission on, and the guy that hunts it with me is fortunate enough to have access to a larger chunk, and so we kind of have the ability to set it aside and say, hey, let's wait for something special. We're gonna pass on a 160-inch 4-year-old 12 point. I've never done that before.
Sure.
And I may not actually have them in front of me to do that this year, but like we've discussed it.
Agreed. Yeah.
And like that's super cool, because I know that buck, the more mature that he gets,
the bigger his antlers are going to be.
Whether they do or not, the more satisfied I will
Sure.
be with having gotten that animal to a level of maturity. Goal obtained. You know what I mean? That's
now go after
get an
him.
animal to maturity, hunt him in a way that we want to do it. And I'm sure the landowner and I's relationship will be strengthened because of that. We made that decision together. Hopefully, ultimately, are successful in doing so. And that's progress. And then check that off, man. We did that. We passed on that 4-year-old 12 point, and
that's the kind of thing that it's why it's so apples and oranges. You can't ever put everybody in the same place, because there's guys that are going to listen to that and be like, this dude is nuts.
Nobody is in the same place. And while I'm saying that's what our goal is, there are guys in our group that would be more than happy with a 3-year-old off of our place because it's the biggest antler deer that they've ever shot. And I can understand why they feel that way. I don't feel that way, but we've discussed it enough over the past 6 years to where we can understand each other. I can understand that my uncle doesn't care if it's 5 years old. If it has big antlers, he wants to shoot it.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because I think you and I probably came up differently, maybe because just of the farms and accesses that we have. But
I'm younger too, man. I've got, the industry has changed in such a rapid way that
I was part of deer drives and orange armies and killed the first 3-inch spike that you see.
And because I'm 10 years later, I grew up with a general distaste for that.
Sure. Well, and I think that's where it's kind of interesting, because, and it's one of those things that I think was probably one of the way that we first connected. Like, from you and I talking out of the gate, whatever it was, 10 years ago, like I would have thought that you would have harvested a lot of deer.
Yeah, I haven't shot that many.
You at that time, I think you had shot like 2 or 3 bucks.
I can probably count.
Well, not on one hand, because you're missing a finger.
1, 2, 3. I've probably, in my lifetime, successfully harvested, I'm going to say 6.
$6.
$6.
Yeah.
But
that's because you were looking for deer of certain
I have
quality.
passed on a ridiculous amount of 3-year-old bucks.
Whereas I came up in the first buck I killed was a spike. Then I killed I think it was like a half rack, and I've killed, I don't know, 25.
Yeah.
And it's, but it obviously if you looked at average quality, the deer that you've killed across your lifetime are much better than the deer that I've killed across my lifetime. The thing is that, at some point I evolved out of that, what was kill the spike, kill the first buck you see, to, okay, Now let's look for a bigger buck. Now let's look at age to the point where, I've killed a 175. I've killed a 163. I've killed big deer with my bow. So now I've set a standard for where I want to be. Mine is still very much age oriented, but that's because age and antlers are usually one and the same.
Yeah. Well, dude, mine was built on my inspirations for bow. It's like, you want to do things like the people that you look up to.
Yeah, like you grew up watching a Bill Winke. I grew up.
Dude, Winke more than anybody lit a fire in me to pursue mature bucks.
Yeah.
The reason that I felt 4-year-old bucks is literally because like Midwest Whitetail, they're like, yeah, we're trying to kill 4-year-old bucks. And whether or not that was realistic, because Bill's in Iowa and I'm in Ohio and Pennsylvania, kind of was a downfall of my approach to it at the time. Maybe it wasn't quite possible. And
so you set the goals, but maybe
the goals were high. The goals were high. And the guys that, like my uncle who wasn't influenced by Midwest Whitetail, didn't understand that.
Was probably more in the mindset that I was raised in, 100%. Which was deer camp.
Yeah.
You shot a buck and you hung it up and like everybody celebrated it. It didn't matter if it was a spike or a
but even that, I mean, dude, my uncle, I think, was one of those guys that he's always been about the antlers. Like he had hunted from the time he was, when I started hunting. And so when he started to have an influence on me, he had been doing it for years and years and had progressed to a point where he's like, I want to kill the best deer in the area, biggest antler deer in the area. And so between him and Winke and like, all of the other influences that whatever, TV shows,
Drury, Lukowski's, everybody.
My goal was super high. And there's good and bad to that.
Do you think there's more people like that in your age demographic?
Probably.
Versus like mine was the one coming out of that. And
so,
then like your uncles and your dads and my dads were, that's all they knew.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, case in point, we have guys in our group that are killers. I mean, they grew up in an era where
brown it's down pretty much.
I mean, it was like kill a good 8-point every year. It was like, that if you could kill an 8-point with your bow every year, you were really doing something. You were looked at in the community as like a great hunter.
Yep.
And that probably was true. Like that's not, I mean, that's.
Well, yeah, I remember like that's what my dad, like I remember my dad killing like a 2-year-old 8-point. He ended up killing like a 5 or 6-year-old like gnarly buck with his bow when I was in high school probably, or middle school or high school. And I remember like that was the biggest deer that I'd ever seen. Not only like body wise, but like I remember like recovering that deer. I'm like, oh my, this is a giant. And like in hindsight scored $120.
Dude, yeah, exactly. That 3-year-old that I've got hanging in my office is a perfect example of that. Like for me, that was the biggest deer I'd killed at the time. I'd been hunting my whole life for that deer at that time.
Probably was acknowledged by the community as like a good deer.
Yeah, I forget. I mean, I was 15 years old or whatever, but I remember showing my friends at school and stuff, and they're like, "Dude, that's crazy! Like that's awesome." And I remember thinking it was the biggest deer ever. And now it's crazy to look at that thing on the wall and just kind of realize where I've come from.
It's a cool benchmark, though.
Very cool, very cool. It's like, man, I can remember when I couldn't believe that thing was on my wall.
And that's where like I bring the kids up a lot because like they're hunting a buck herd that is so far advanced compared to what I hunted, and even what you hunted.
Yeah. And
so part of that scares me in the fact that like, my evolution was spikes and half racks and like trash bucks and whatever, but I loved it. I thrived off of that. Theirs is all of a sudden dad's got pictures of multiple 150s and 160s on camera in areas they're hunting. What I don't want to do is them go from the 4.1-year-olds that they've killed to a 4-year-old 160. It's like, holy shit, like where do you go from here? Like the evolution, hunting is made to progress. It is made for you to get hooked on it and to then grow as a hunter, to become a better hunter. And I know we just discussed how you can't label that, but you yourself, your challenge against yourself is the one thing that you can measure. And so, just like, Jake Ealinger. Like, look at his wall of progression. Look at Rising. Rising's probably got a wall of progression.
Well, dude, even before that, I think hunting in and of itself, like its very nature, requires you to be of a certain standard of person or a certain ethic of person.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking about earlier, like the realization of taking a life or abiding by the rules set forth, whether it's property lines or whatever ethics are tied with it. Dude, hunting is a huge responsibility.
And listen,
and to even take it on is, you better be ready for that.
Well, and there again, you can pick on us for it. There is a major line of division right there, because there are some hunters that, frankly, they're pieces of shit.
People.
They'll hunt anywhere. They'll shoot whatever they want. They'll make bad shots. They won't recover things. And listen, it happens to all of us, but I'm talking like
not that any one of those things inherently makes you a bad person, but
well, I don't know, man. It's
hard.
I relate it to pets. If you abuse your dog or your whatever, like, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Argue against it.
Well, I'm always giving probably more credit than it's due, but like I want to acknowledge that people are on different paths, like where I'm saying I started from which was witnessing this unjustified killing, just kind of people love killing shit, and realizing that distaste for it. There are people right now, even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, who are kind of maybe just experiencing that for the first time, or whatever it is that's exposing them to hunting. And so I want to maybe give some slack to people who don't fully understand how they feel about it yet.
Well, and that's where the evolution, and it's going to happen at different age points. I'll be the first to say, like, I was an asshole probably when I was in my teens. Like, I probably trespassed. I shot deer on other people. Like, I probably did a lot of things.
Hooligan.
Yeah. Now, like, I regret doing that. I've matured to understand, like, those were wrong. And in that same breath, I will give somebody of that age class probably a pass. Like, if you show up on my property or something, listen, man, not cool. Don't do it. Right now, where I start to lose respect, you're 55 years old and you're doing that shit still? No.
Sure.
No, there's no respect there. You know better at this point. Sure. So there is an evolution on that side of things that you have to understand. But
there's basic human ethics, and then there's hunting specific ethics.
Sure.
And the two obviously are overlapped.
And it does come with age. I mean,
but trespassing is one of those things.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna
don't do that.
If a 16-year-old kid is like trying to hunt my line and like, obviously I'm not gonna tolerate it, but I'm not gonna call the cops on them and arrest them. Right. The 55-year-old dude who's the repeat offender, I'm going to press every possible book that I can at you.
Maybe you could say it like this. I think that respect for other people is something that's generally taught across the board. Mm-hmm. Respect for animals, I think, is something that is not as widely understood and maybe takes some experience in the field, whether it's hunting or whatever. It's earned, or it takes time to develop. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe that's a good place to kind of end it, is like, our understanding or respect for these animals, I think, has evolved to such a point here where, we hunt the way that we hunt, and it's so influenced by that's kind of the.
We just appreciate it so much. That's why we're doing the podcast, right? I mean, we appreciate this lifestyle and these animals so much, and we recognize the limited resource of them, that we have a podcast that we revolve much of our life and time around, because that's the discussions we want to have. Yeah. It's an always evolving piece.
And to bring it full circle, I guess, like, you're gonna have guys who disagree on ways to do it, and
but don't. Again, this isn't condoning any of the things that have recently happened, but don't write it off 100% until you hear why they think that. Yeah. You could still disagree at the end of the day, but there's a reason they think that. And if you constantly censor them or hush them, you'll never hear what that reason is. And guess what? It will never improve. Yeah. The division will always be there. So, sometimes you got to let a guy say his piece. At the end of it, you can say, I don't agree with that. But if he didn't say that, then how is it ever going to air itself out?
Yeah.
So.
And we're not all ever going to see eye to eye. I mean, that's just what it is. That's just, people.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, dude, it's October. Like, cut the bullshit. Let's go hunt. Like, it's just whining about stupid stuff. So, anyways, that's it, right? Episode 95.
Cool.
And we will see y'all next week.
Later.
Bye.
Take me